Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Spiral Wave, where we'll continue to look over the 10 essential points of young Chengfu, one of the great Tai Chi masters of the last century, and in many ways part of the lineage of the Yang Tai Chi Chuan style. I think, as we've mentioned, there's other styles of Tai Chi Chuan. There's Chen style and Wu style and Sun style. Those are the main ones. And then there's Yang style, and we're following Yang style, and specifically the system that Yang Chengfu's student Cheng Manqing studied, a 37 form. It's sometimes called Cheng Manqing style, but it's not really a style, but he kind of shortened the form to make it more accessible. So I have this book by Yang Chengfu, and this is his book on Tai Chi Chuan. And I wanted to read it to you because he talks about the points we're going over, and I wanted to make sure that you understood that really we're being quite good students here, following what he's saying. And I'll go over these points. We've already covered 3 of them, which I'll go over with you, and then we'll cover another couple of them, which are very important. Remember, this is the beginning pose. This is the very beginning of Tai Chi Chuan. Our feet are parallel, our knees are over our toes. We're just relaxing into the ground. The posture is called Wu Ji, which really means emptiness, or we could look at it as neutral. Nothing is happening other than we're just there. It's kind of a very there position, but it's very neglected. As you'll hear Yang Chengfu say, he said, "This is the Tai Chuan posture for preparing to move." Preparing to move. Remember, we haven't moved yet. Stand in stillness. The head must be upwardly aligned. The intent is on the energy at the crown of the head. The eyes look forward evenly. Contain the chest and draw up the back. You must not bow forward or lean backward. Sink the shoulders and drop the elbows. The fingertips of the 2 hands point forward. The palms face down. Loosen the waist and the qua. The qua is this inguinal crease here, as if we're wearing a bikini, the bikini line. The 2 feet tread the ground parallel and separated to a distance equal to the shoulders. You must, in particular, secure the spirit of vitality within. The qi sinks to the dantian, that's this part in our lower belly. Allow it to do so spontaneously. You must not force it. I hold to my own stillness in order to deal with the other's movements. The other's movement. So now he's talking about when he's in combat. I hold to my own stillness in order to deal with the other's movement. Thus the inner and the outer are unified. Essence and application are integrated. People all too easily neglect this posture and really do not know the method of its practice or application. It is all right here. One hopes that the student pays primary attention to this. I'm going to repeat those last 3 sentences because when we're doing this, it seems so boring, right? We want to move and do the Tai Chi postures and all the movements and everything. But if we don't get this posture straight, then everything is going to be a waste. This is the foundation that we build on. People all too easily neglect this posture and really do not know the method of its practice or application. It is all right here. One hopes that the student pays primary attention to this. Now, someone took, well, I think it's Chen Wei Ming, I think his name was, took the principles and kind of formalize them into 10 essential points. And that's how we get Yang Chengfu. I don't think Yang Chengfu said these are the 10 essential points, but he kind of mentions them there, and that's what we're going to be exploring. So the formalization was the first one: elevate the crown and raise the spirit. So that was number one. So we need to have this, almost this extension at the back of the neck without forcing anything. And then contain the chest and expand the back. I think he said raise up the back, but I've heard it expanding the back. Contain the chest. Remember we talked about just pushing on this point, this notch here at the top of the sternum, pushing down a little bit so that the sternum drops, so the chest is contained without rolling the shoulders. Contain the chest. The expansion of the back happens with number 3, which is Sao, Sung Yao, which is release the waist. So we want this waist to release. We don't do anything with it. We don't tuck it under. We release the waist. The pelvis moves away from the lower ribs. So we're kind of stretching this area. Not that we're stretching, that it stretches because we're sinking it. Those were the 3 points. And if you remember, we talked about a hanger. It's almost like we have a hook under our occiput, behind our neck here, these occipital bones, the back of the head, the back of the skull, at the base of the skull. It's almost like we hook under there so that this is really kind of held. Then this form of the shape of the hook, and then this shape of the shoulders and the neck forms like a hanger. And that is how the rest of the body drapes over that hanger into the ground. Very important. So we want the energy to go down, just sink down. Let me go over a couple of points. We want to be, and I hope you can hear me, so I'm going to shout a little bit louder. I'm a little further away from the microphone. We want to have our feet parallel. We want to have the second toe. So we've got the big toe and then the second toe pointing forward. We want it to be shoulder width. We don't want to be hip width because the energy will go outside. We don't want to have too wide because the energy goes to the inside. We want the shoulders to go down. So the 3 points: elevate the crown and raise the spirit. We'll talk about raise the spirit at the end, another session. Contain the chest, expand the back, release the waist. Very important. And as we release the waist, we have to feel the feet. Remember, the knees must be over the center of the foot. And we don't want it to extend past the toes. We don't want it to be, because you'll feel the tension immediately. We want the energy to go through the center of the foot into the ground. We want to feel our feet on the ground. And we want to just stand naturally. Now, you heard me read, Yang Chengfu said that the palms are down and the fingers are facing forward. Now, interestingly enough, in the Qigong segment, I'll be doing Wu Ji somewhat like that. But here, we're just being very natural. We're just letting everything sink to the ground. So in one way, we're diverging ourselves a little bit from that. But this would be a little bit too tense. Although if you do have your fingers facing forward a little bit, you'll feel definitely a buzz of energy if you're looking for that. Okay, so point number 4, differentiate substantial and insubstantial. This is a very important point. Now we're in Wu Ji. This will have more meaning for you when we go into a movement. Because as soon as we move the body, like even like you just there, boom, I'm now separating into yin and yang. But here, no yin and yang, emptiness. But we still can use this point, differentiate substantial and insubstantial. Or we could say, differentiate excess and deficiency, which is more like a Chinese medicine term for when you're balancing the meridians. Excess would be, we're too tense. Deficiency, we're too slack. So we have to find that balance. So when you're standing, when you're standing, you have to kind of see, am I tense in any area? And just balance it out if you are. This is why we stand maybe for 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Eventually, we'll do a 25-minute standing sequence. And it's difficult because our body is stretching and working out. It's not just standing. I can stand in line for a long time. That's not what we're doing here. We're really opening the tissues of the body. That's why we Sung Yao, we release the waist down, away from the head, away from the lower ribs. The rib cage releases away from the neck. And we start going down. And you should start really feeling the pressure, without force, just natural pressure, building up in the feet. So differentiate substantial and insubstantial. Am I tense in an area? Because Wu Ji is emptiness. We don't want it to be weighted one way. We don't want more in the front and less in the back. We want everything to be evened out so that we can get this energy flowing, so that when we do move, we have the right attitude and our body is in the right position. Because without this practice and with the neglect of this posture, you'll find that people go into the first movement and boom, they've lost it. You see it already. They're back like this. Their heads are forward. They're hunched up. Because they haven't trained themselves just to be, you move naturally, because all of this placement, which is an alignment of the tissues, not an alignment of the bones. That's a mistake some people make, is they think we're aligning the bones. Yes, we're adjusting the bones. So if you're feeling a little tense in some way, you can adjust the bones a little bit. But the idea is so that the tissues can align, because we're going to be drawn by the tissues. The bones are floating. The tissue is going into the ground. So we want to be able to feel the ground. And this brings us to the fifth point, which is sink, or lower the shoulders to sink the elbows. Lower the shoulders to sink the elbows. Now he said to and sink the elbows. But really, it's just like relaxing the shoulders to sink the elbows. Now, what does that mean? Very, very important. We want to think of our shoulders as really our shoulder blades, our scapula. We want those scapula to slide down the back, our back, sliding down. Maybe it comes out a little bit. We want to be very familiar with the glide of our scapula. Now, some people are so tense in their shoulders, they can't feel their scapula move. So that's why we can do those shoulder rolls, which we kind of talked about in a previous episode, which you may want to go back, where we're just opening up the tissues, bringing our consciousness into it. We want to be familiar with those shoulder blades. Let them sink. Now, here's your exercise for you. We're in Wu Ji. We have this posture. Raise your shoulder blades and notice how you come off from the ground. You don't feel your feet. Sink the shoulders, and now you should feel almost like a compression in the feet. The energy goes through the shoulders into the feet. Then now, boom, you're there. Raise the shoulders. Now, when you do things like pushing hands or any martial applications, if you're like this, you float off. There's no grounding. As soon as you do this, I trained in ballet as well. It's the same with ballet. As soon as you go like this, you're kind of lost. So it's always down. So not that ballet and Tai Chi are similar, but some principles are very similar. The shoulders must be down. You notice here ballet dancer like this, right in first position with the arms. You know, it's just like they're very much down. Shoulders are down. In that case, in ballet, you're kind of forcing them down, really. Not in Tai Chi. We're allowing them to sink down. So we're going to have the shoulders releasing, relaxing, sinking down, lowering, and then to sink the elbows. Now, a lot of people, they're like this. And that's because they haven't relaxed their shoulders sufficiently. As soon as the shoulders relax, then there's a slight bowing out. But you can't force it. I can do this. And it's just like, but I'm creating tension. I'm creating force. I want to be able to lower the shoulder blades so that this comes out. And really what's happening is that we're just this line of energy from our shoulders coming through the fascia or the connective tissue is just opening up, and our shoulders and our elbows are sinking. Now, at that point, if I raise my elbows, I find myself coming off the ground again. If I sink the elbows, so another exercise would be just to open up the elbows. I'm off the ground, now I'm back in the ground. Just relax again. Not like this, that's force. But if I'm like this, then I've clearly got a lot of work to do to just release. You'll see that as you release the shoulders, the elbows will just naturally come open. Nothing for you to do really. And your hands will just naturally take a position. So, 5 points. Elevate the crown, very important, okay? Elevate the crown, raise the spirit. Number 1. Number 2, contain the chest. Remember, we're not sloping the shoulders forward. Contain the chest and expand the back. Release the waist. So important, you have to get this. You have to begin to release the waist down from the lower ribs while keeping the crown elevated. So it's almost like you just feel that go down and you don't move the head. The head stays there. So that's what makes all of this a work exercise. That's why you may find yourself sweating at first and you're trembling. Of course, don't put yourself in any difficulty, but it's quite natural for your legs to be trembling and to feel a little achy, not painful, no sharp pains, that's bad, but a little achiness. Your muscles are releasing. Again, you may find, oh, I'm very tense here. Start to differentiate substantial and insubstantial, or excess and deficiency, so you balance out. Are your shoulders released? And release the shoulders to sink the elbows. So we want those shoulders to come down. Could be loosen the shoulders would be another way. Release the shoulders, relax the shoulders to sink the elbows. So again, go like this. You don't feel the ground. Sink the shoulders. There has to be, I'm sorry to use the word has to be, a line of energy where when you sink the shoulders, you feel it in your feet. When you sink the elbows, you feel the elbows and the feet connected. It feels you're connected to the ground. Again, we don't want any leaning back or any leaning forward. And we basically stay like this. Again, we want to be shoulder width. And you can tell this, by the way, if I'm like this, I'm not feeling anything. I'm not feeling the ground. If I'm like this, I'm feeling too much ground. I'm too heavy. But if I feel here, then I can feel the energy go through, and also can always make little adjustments. Remember that second toe is the one pointing forward, not your big toe, but the second toe is pointing forward. Feet even, knees over the feet. Sink the waist, release the waist. Release the shoulder blades to sink the elbows. Again, that head forward. Remember that hanger, everything drapes over. I want to make sure my shoulders are over my hips. I do not want to be like this. Everything is wasted at that point. Nothing is going on. I don't want to be like this. That's too much. I want to be over the ground. And I want to be standing here for a while. I want my body to begin to change and transform. I want my tissues to open up so that I can be completely relaxed. So just be here for 5 minutes. I know for myself, for whatever happened, I don't know if it was an injury or a surgery or something, my right buttock is always clenching a little bit. My left is relaxed. So I'm constantly adjusting a little bit just to make sure that that buttock is released, because habitually it tends to tense up. And so this is very useful that eventually, habitually, that will relax. Just like it's a habit to tense right now for whatever reason, soon it will relax. And this is the kind of thing where we need to stand to get rid of these chronic tension patterns. that if we don't handle in this posture, and this is why standing is so vital, if we don't handle it here, then it will take it into our form when we begin to move, and it just won't be effective. It just won't be effective. I'm sorry to say that. It will be effective in terms of moving your body. Anytime you can move your body, that's great. I'm talking about being a Tai Chi Chuan practitioner and also a Qigong practitioner, where oftentimes these fundamentals are very neglected, which is why we're going through them here in excruciating detail. But believe me, if you're serious about this study, then it's worth it. And then you can take that into whatever teaching or whatever training ground you want, because you'll be feeling the ground. And most importantly, into life. Because what do we see? We see a lot of this posture, right? In day-to-day life, as we do our devices, a lot of it. We see people who are not in the ground because their shoulders are up. They're not on the ground and not paying attention. And what do we see in an older person? We see shoulders up and no connection to the ground. If you can get your shoulders down, if you can get to feel the ground as you move, your body will sink. It'll be healthier for you, as is keeping this neck free and open. It'll be healthier for you, and you'll be less likely to fall because you'll feel the ground and you'll feel yourself and be able to catch yourself before you get out of balance. If there's a slight balance, you'll be able to correct yourself, almost like steer yourself from your feet. Very, very, very important indeed. And again, constantly we practice this so that when we do go into the movements, then everything is structured in the body, the tissues are open, and we can really then get to have the full movement of our body in Tai Chi Chuan. Next time we'll complete the 10 essential points of Yang Chengfu, but please, in the meantime, practice these points. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me by email. Thank you so much. Bei Rish Bei Shan.